our postmodern age of division, anger, anxiety, and confusion, the most dangerous weapon you have is your own mind.
Take control! Question everything!
This is the Intellectual Freedom Podcast.
Who is the freest person on earth? If I ask you that question right now, who pops into your head? Maybe it's someone from the Billionaire Club, like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. You know, the kind of person with the FU type of money on the mega yacht who can pretty much do and say whatever they want. Maybe it's some world leader type who just snaps his fingers and has the power to make people disappear. Maybe it's a rock star who trashes hotel rooms, chooses whatever woman he wants, and never hears the word no. We look at these people, these wolves, and do you just sort of feel even maybe a little twinge of envy? Come on, you can be honest with me. Unlimited money, power, resources. I mean, we all kind of dream of that now and again, right? We think must be nice to have zero limits, to have zero rules, to just take what you want whenever you want it. Sometimes we think that type of absolute power equals absolute freedom. But today, Plato is going to take us inside that man's head, that wolf's head. He's going to walk us into the bedroom of the dictator. He's going to show us the panic attacks of the billionaire. And he's going to prove with surgical precision that the man who answers to no one is often, most of the time, actually a slave to everything. Welcome back to the Intellectual Freedom Podcast. I'm Dr. David Hopkins, humanities professor and your host and guide as we continue our trek through the Republic by Plato. And by now, I'll save you all the superlatives of this book in the history of Western philosophy. But hey, if you are new, tuning in for the very first time, would love to have you go back, catch up on all the other episodes that have got us to this point. But if you're just here for the psychology of a tyrant, that's all good too. We call the tyrant the wolf. Because, well, that is the metaphor that fits best here. The wolf, opportunistic, smart, stealthy, ready to pounce when the right opportunity arises. But in this episode, our friend Plato, through the voice of Socrates, as usual, is going to explain clearly and fully why being the wolf isn't free at all. It isn't all glamour, and there are very serious consequences to this mentality. The wolf isn't as free as we often like to imagine. So the recap. Where we are today. If you've been riding with us through this entire series, you know we are near the end of the line. We started with the just city, the aristocracy of the soul. Then in book 8, we watched the slow motion car crash of civilization. We watched the Timocrat choose honor over wisdom. Then we watched the oligarch choose money over honor. Then we watched the Democrat choose pleasure over money. And finally, the Democrat, the man with the supermarket soul, the guy who just wants to have fun, follow his bliss, created so much chaos that the people began to beg for a protector. They begged for a strong man to clean up the streets, and the protector became the tyrant. So here we are, book number 9. The tyrant is now in charge, and Socrates is about to perform surgery on the envy. He's going to show us the MRI of that man's soul. And let me tell you, it's ugly. First, Socrates wants to bring us into this weird dream. He asks about dreams. He says that inside every civilized person, even you, even me, even the sweetest grandmother listening to this, there is a wild beast that wakes up when we are asleep. When your reason goes offline, what comes out to play? Socrates says this beast is capable of anything. It wants to commit crimes for cash and power. It wants to murder. It wants to eat forbidden fruit. It wants to break every taboo. Why? Because it can. Listen to this quote from the Republican. Remember, he wrote this 2,300 years ago before Sigmund Freud was even born. He said, quote, "But when a man's pulse is healthy and temperate, he goes to sleep. But when he parts company with all shame and sense, the wild beast in our nature, gorged with meat or drink, starts up and walks about naked, and there is no conceivable folly or crime which it is not ready to commit." End quote. Starts up and walks about naked. My friends, that is the id. That is the dark side of the moon. So let's pause. I just used a fancy word, the id. What does that actually mean? I would say, think of the id as your inner toddler. It's part of the brain that hasn't learned the word no. It operates on one rule and one rule only, the pleasure principle. It says, I see it, I want it, and I will take it. Doesn't care about the future. It doesn't care about morality. It doesn't care if it hurts you or anyone else. It just wants dopamine and wants it right now. Socrates calls it the wild beast. Freud calls it the id. Modern science calls it the lizard brain. For most of us, we have a parent in our head, our reason, that tells the toddler, no, you can't eat the whole cake. You're going to get sick. Or no, you can't just punch that guy. You're going to go to jail. But here's the terrifying part about the tyrant, about the wolf. The tyrant is a man where the parent has died, and the toddler has found the keys to the car. He has no filter. He has no brakes. He is purely 100% id. And that is why the tyrant is so dangerous. Now, for most of us, most of the time, we wake up, we shake off the nightmare, we shake off those evil, devious thoughts, those crazy thoughts inside of our brain that find our way into the mind, and we go back to being normal, civilized people, right? Our reason puts the beast sort of back in the cage once we wake up. But here's the definition of the tyrant. The tyrant is the man who lives his waking life the way a psychopath lives in his dreams. He has no cage. He has no internal police. He has no filters. He's living in a permanent purge. He acts on every single dark impulse immediately. If he wants it, he takes it. And he calls this freedom. But is it? Tyrant thinks you're so free because you do whatever you want, whenever you want, no matter what. But is that really freedom? To answer that, we have to look at how this person became a tyrant. We talked last week about the democratic man, the guy with the kaleidoscope soul who just drifts from pleasure to pleasure and pleasure to pleasure. Well, eventually, one of those pleasures has the ability, and often does, take over. And Socrates calls this a master passion. Oftentimes it's lust, eros, or it's greed, or it's power. It acts like a giant drone bee stinging the soul into madness. And once that master passion takes the wheel, the individual is no longer driving. The addiction is driving. If you have ever been around another person that has so sadly suffered from a debilitating addiction, you know what I'm talking about. When Socrates again calls that the master passion, that's like the stinging bee. So let's try and make this kind of concrete. Let's talk about Hollywood. Movies can be great, right? And we call the tyrant the wolf because, well, that's a metaphor that fits. And we have a perfect modern example of this. Some of you may have seen the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, The Wolf of Wall Street. It got all kinds of acclaim. It was highly popular. Think about Jordan Belfort, who was the main character in this book. And if you haven't seen the book, you should watch it. Disclaimer, warning, it is not for the faint of heart. There is nudity, there is language, there is drugs, sex, alcohol, you name it, you get it in this movie. So just be aware if you're going to watch it. But this movie's almost book 9 of the Republic to a T. When you watch that movie, especially the first half, what do you see? You see Ferraris. You see supermodels. You see a guy from nothing rise up, and he's getting money. And he's got money like he's never seen before in his entire life. Then come the quaaludes and the parties. And if we're being honest, a part of us watches that and thinks, man, that guy is free. That guy is winning. He does whatever he wants, whenever he wants. But Plato's screaming at us from the grave, and he's saying, whoa, 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 slow down. Look at this a little closer. Is Jordan Belfort, if you've seen the movie, free? Or is he a slave to a master passion that he has no control over? Think about that famous scene where he is so high on lemon 714s that he literally loses the ability to walk. He has to crawl, drag his body like a paralyzed worm just to get to his car. He can't even, he's foaming at the mouth and he can't even formulate a word. It's a perfect image of the tyrant. He thinks he is the master of his universe. But in reality, he's lower than a slug, lower than a worm. He's crawling on the ground, incapacitated by his own appetite. And look at his relationships. Socrates tells us the tyrant really, in the end, has no friends. He has accomplices. Does the Wolf of Wall Street have friends? No. He has drug buddies. He has employees. He has a whole lot of parasites. And the moment the FBI puts the heat on, what happens? The paranoia sets in. The wires get worn. Everyone starts ratting out everyone else. The movie shows us exactly what Plato predicted. The wolf, in this case, the Wolf of Wall Street, they are not the apex predator. The wolf is actually the prey. He is being hunted by his own addiction. He thinks in his mind he's free because he can buy a yacht. But he's not free to sit in a quiet room for 5 minutes without snorting something to escape his own mind. This isn't freedom, my friends. This is a high-gloss, gold-plated prison cell. Plato took this and put his own spin on the wolf and his descent. And here's how Plato describes it. says first, the person burns through his own money on parties and women. Then when he runs out of that money, he starts stealing from his friends, family, parents' money, and even attacks them if they dare to resist him. Then when that runs out, he steals the temple's money, image of sacrilege. And then finally, when that runs out, he steals the city's money. He becomes a dictator, not because he has a political vision, but because he needs more cash to feed the beast. The quote from the book, quote, "Love is his tyrant and lives like a tyrant within him. And now he will not stick at murder or at any atrocity, but is ready to eat and drink and sleep with whomsoever he pleases," end quote. There is no, in other words, there's no atrocity. He won't try, he won't do. This is not a king. It's a meth addict. I want you to really let that sink in. When you see a junkie on the street, shaking, stealing a catalytic converter to get his next fix, do you think, wow, that guy is so free? No. You feel pity, hopefully some empathy. But you also think, man, that guy is a slave to his addictions. And Socrates is saying that the tyrant is just a junkie with an army, a great PR department, and some really beautiful, fine clothes. He cannot say no to his own urges. He's whipped and driven by his own appetites. He is actually the least free person in the world. But surely that the power is nice, right? I mean, surely living in the palace is better than living under a bridge. And Socrates asks a very pointed question to those in his company. He says, is he happy? And the verdict, he is in hell. Why? Because of fear. Because if you treat everyone around you long enough and badly enough, or like an object, you can never have a friend. You can only have masters, people stronger than you, or slaves, people weaker than you. The tyrant has never known a single moment of friendship, of trust, of caring in his entire life. And because he knows he is a monster, he knows everyone wants to kill him. He's terrified of assassination. He has to hire mercenaries to guard him when he sleeps. He can't go to festivals. He can't travel. He can't walk the streets without a security detail. As the quote says, quote, "He lives like a woman hidden in the house and is jealous of any other citizen who goes abroad and sees anything good." Think about Stalin. Stalin's a great example of a tyrant. One of the most brutal, evil tyrants to ever walk the face of the earth. Historically, we know that at the end of his life, Stalin was paralyzed by paranoia. He purged his own doctors. He was afraid they were going to poison him. He died alone in his room, soaking in his own urine. Because the guards were too terrified to open the door and check on him because they were afraid Stalin might turn on them too. Think about the pop star in the hotel room. They have millions of dollars, but they can't go to the grocery store. They can't go for just a quiet walk in the park. They're trapped. They're trapped in a golden cage surrounded by yes men and women who are only there for the payroll. The tyrant is a slave with the power to harm others. He's the most miserable soul in the city. We all have heard and seen so many tragedies of famous, rich, powerful people that are so self-destructive they end up dead, shamed, ridiculed, discarded. The power, the money, the prestige, the fame, just so intoxicating. that, well, it's enough to drive any person insane in too large of an amount. They become trapped in their own material greatness. Sometimes these downfalls are so very tragically sad when brilliant people fall to drugs and alcohol, or the delusion of fame and power, or others to vices, or others like Stalin or Hitler who just, wow, caused the death of millions, even tens of millions of innocent people. I think we've beat this horse to death. And in the book, the verbal combatants at the end, they have to verbally surrender to him. And Glaucon actually says, quote, "Okay, Socrates, I get it. Justice is better, but how do I explain this to people? How do I visualize it?" And Socrates gives the final definitive image of the human soul. And I want you to build this statue in your mind. A statue made of 3 parts molded together. A many-headed beast representing the appetites. It has a ring of heads, some tame, like hunger for bread, some wild, like lust for blood, or it's constantly changing and growing. So part of this statue is just a multi-head. And then there's also the head of a lion sticking up. This represents the spirit. It's smaller, but it's fierce. And then there's just a smaller head. It's the smallest by far. It's the most fragile part of the statue. It represents reason. Now look at the unjust man for 1 second, the tyrant. He spends his whole life feeding the beast and the lion. He gives that many-headed beast money, power, prestige, passions. These heads grow huge. They become monsters. And the little inner man, he's starved. He's weak. He gets dragged around by the beast, screaming, but unable to stop it. That's slavery. That's slavery. When the beast and the lion are together on the same team, but the small, the power of reason is nothing but just being drug along. That's slavery. Reverse that, though. The just man. The just man feeds the inner man. And so the inner man is strong. It's alert. It's rational. It thinks critically. And he makes the lion his ally. And he domesticates the beast. He feeds the tame heads, the healthy desires, and he's constantly pruning the wild heads, the addictions. He is in charge. That, my friends, is freedom. Okay, I could go on this for a while. I really could, but really, I know if you're listening to this, you are more than smart enough to get it. I'm just going to repeat this metaphor one more time for you to internalize, but maybe frame it for you directly. So, you are a brilliantly made being, and you do have 3 parts. You have that many-headed beast. Those are your appetites. Everybody's appetites are a little different. Not everybody lusts after the same thing, wants the same thing. And some of those heads are very tame, like hunger, thirst. Some things are wild, lust for blood. It's constantly changing, this many-headed beast, right? It changes and grows as you go through life stages, or you go through different things, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all the human appetites, all rolled up in one. You also have a lion inside of you. And this represents your spirit. It's smaller, but it is fierce. And if you live a life of truth and goodness, this lion is a warrior for greatness. If the lion isn't checked and trained, it can drive you towards becoming a tyrant in big in small ways. I mean, you think of Hitler and Stalin and Mao and some of these horrific tyrants in history. My goodness, that lion was untamable and that lion was horrible. But it doesn't have to be. But then you also have this reason, this human. It's the smallest. It's incredibly fragile. It can change. It's hidden inside of you. But although way smaller than the beast and the lion, it is so powerful. Because if you learn to control your mind, you will. Sorry about that. Knock my own microphone over for a second. You will control your life. If you spend your whole life and time feeding the beast and the lion, they will grow huge in your life and they will take over. They will become a monster. And that little inner man, that reason, gets starved, becomes weak, gets dragged around by the beast, screaming, unable to stop. And that's slavery. That's slavery. But for the just person, you're in control. You make the lion your ally, and you domesticate the beast. You prune it. You enjoy the appetites within reason. But your reason always is in control, always marching side by side with your spirit. Your reason and the lion, they're together. You feed the tame heads of your beast, the healthy parts of your beast, and you prune the wild head, those things that could cause addictions in your life, those things that can bring you harm. You're fully in charge of your world and your appetite, in essence. You are the master of your entire being, mind, body, spirit, as one. Now this is true power. So here's the challenge for you this week. Who are you feeding? Every time you scroll TikTok, when you should be sleeping, you're feeding the beast. Every time you scream at a stranger in traffic who cuts you off, feeding the lion. You're ruining your spirit. Every time you read a book, practice discipline, or tell the truth even when it's hard, you're feeding your reason. The question isn't, what do you want to do? The question is, which part of you is voting? So, the pattern is complete. We've gone from the height of the philosopher king to the depth of the tyrant. We have proven that justice equals happiness, because happiness is self-mastery, and injustice is misery and addiction. You have lost control. Socrates has won the argument. He has proved that even if you had the ring of Gyges, being a tyrant isn't worth it. You're just wearing a crown in a prison cell. But Socrates is not done just yet. He has proven that justice is better for this life. But what about the next? Oh boy, we're not all the way done yet. We have one final parting shot, and it is immensely important. We have one book left, book number 10 in the Republic, and we are going to talk about immortality, along with other things. So I will see you in the next episode, I hope, and that's the final episode of this story and of this series. But for now, I'm Dr. David Hopkins. Feed the reason and the soul and starve the beast inside of you. And I will see you in the next episode.